When I was a kid, I loved to draw. I really liked to draw houses, to the point at one stage in my life I thought I might want to be an architect. And yes, I did draw this house. And if you think about it, the best part about drawing houses is they're pretty simple. They're a square. You start with a square, you add a triangle for the roof, draw some windows on there, maybe a chimney. You get to have fun around it too, use different colors and everything else. And it seemed to be the one thing when I would draw as a kid that I'd always come back to. If I couldn't think of something else to draw, I'd draw a house and just have a lot of fun with it. And as you think about most kids, I think anybody in this room, did you draw houses as a kid? I think most people did. That's one of the things as an adult, as I'm thinking about houses and drawings and kind of some of those kind of things. And I try to find things that kind of draw people together and find the common ground. And I found that the drawings that we did as kids are one of those common grounds. My wife also teaches 4-year-olds, so I get to see all kinds of houses because she gets given presents every single day, from these kids. Now you think about us as adults. And so another confession I'll make to you is the house that I showed just a minute ago. I drew that maybe 6 months ago. Hasn't changed a lot, right? It's still pretty much the same. And you think about it, when I was a kid, I think another thing that I loved about drawing houses is it just made me feel safe. It's something that I could touch. It was something I could think about. And if you grew up in a house or not, I didn't always live in a house, but when I did, the house was kind of that common ground. And there was something, I think, for most kids that's comforting around houses. And then for me as an adult, I've been thinking about houses again lately and kind of where this went. And I still have an inclination, if I'm doodling or whatever, I'll draw a house. But I drew a square. When I'm trying to think about an issue or a topic or a challenge, a lot of times I'll get out just a blank piece of paper and I'll start writing and diagramming and drawing. And recently I drew this square on a piece of paper. I'm in the natural gas business, and this square, kind of the 4 kind of parameters around it were one side was safety, another side was reliability, another side was affordability, and another side was environment or clean energy. And I'm thinking about this square, and at the time when I drew it, they're all equal, right? And trying to understand how that fits. And then, of course, because I drew a square, automatically I started drawing a roof on it and trees around it and everything else. But for me, what's valuable with that is thinking about those 4 parameters, because that's really how we think about our business. And as every community that I work in and every community across the United States and for a greater part of the world is thinking about what can they do about climate change, the house really came back to me. For one thing, the house is really where most of this all starts. The house represents the decisions that we make on a daily basis, as well as the energy that is used around those houses. So you think a little broader in terms of the house. You think about the whole community. And everybody draws their house a little different. They might have a square and a triangle, but what they end up doing with it is a little different. So this challenge is really unique. Climate change is really unique. The parameters, I don't think that those 4 sides are going to be different, but the how much you enforce or reinforce each one of those sides or how much you're going after them is really the key with this. Then you start thinking about how the challenge of trying to do this across an entire community. We've got a lot of different people, that need to come together and figure out how to make this happen. You've got people that have to figure out how do we want to build this house for our community. And I like the house also because it becomes a representation, a visual prompt, a visual tool that we can use, that we all get, we understand it, we understand 4 sides. And if we can come to terms that those are the 4 sides we want to work on, we've got some common ground now that we can start working together to go after what we need to do to address climate change. So one of my favorite kind of lessons I've learned in my career, and most of it has always been from constraints, is I've been kind of through this wave of my career when I was a little bit younger where I just wanted to innovate. I was all about innovation. I've spent most of my career in the energy business, but I also was a part of a tech company as a startup and love that experience and love innovation. But what I found was the greatest thing for innovation comes from one main thing. It is constraint. It's the challenge. So it's not just the blank piece of paper. It's knowing what are those rules, what are those parameters that you're trying to solve for, and so coming together with that. And so this is a kind of a blueprint. I didn't draw this one, so no credit to that. It's a lot better than anything that I could probably do. But the challenge that I want to put in front of you, so I talked about those 4 sides of the house. And so let's just describe it this way. The environment, climate change is the roof. One side of the house is going to be reliability, another side safety. And then the foundation is going to be affordability. And so those are the parameters. And the other parameter is going to be, as we know we need to rebuild the roof, and we've got to go after the environment. As we do that, what are we going to, and we can't add any more parts to this. There's no more materials that you can use. Nobody's coming to help. And honestly, there's not going to be a magic pill or a silver bullet to fix this. It's going to be up to each community to really decide that. So for El Paso, as you're trying to figure out how, what your priority is in basically rebuilding that roof, what are the trade-offs going to be to get there? And so back to thinking in terms of the whole community. How can you bring together a community to decide this? My opinion is it can't just be a few groups that come together for this. It's got to be a comprehensive, holistic approach to thinking about how we can do this in a way that we can innovate that can be good for all of El Paso. And so I'll leave you with really three main things. This is my recommendation for El Paso as you think about this. One, if you like the house, use it. If you don't, come up with some kind of a visual representation about how to talk about this across the entire community. And with that, think about what the tolerances are, the tolerance level. So I work in a utility, so I'm surrounded by engineers on a day-to-day basis. I'm not an engineer, I'm an artist, right? But I'm around them all the time. And one of the things they talk about a lot is tolerances. What are you going to tolerate? What are the gives and takes? What are the trade-offs? So if you're going to take to rebuild the roof, are you going to take some away from affordability? If you're going to do that, are you going to take some away from safety to make sure that affordability? But what are those trade-offs? So what I'd encourage you to think about as a community is, one, how do you draw that together? And two, identify what are you going to tolerate? What's important to El Paso? What I wouldn't recommend is just to pick up some other community's plan and say, we're just going to do that here, because El Paso is unique. It's got its own needs. It's got its own vision. It knows what it wants to be in the future. So don't just borrow from somebody else's. And the last one is do this in a way that everybody gets to participate. Everybody has a voice that they can collaborate. That's where the real innovation is going to be. And that is the challenge for El Paso. Thank you.